No one is entirely sure when or where beer was first brewed in Britain. The Normans were prolific beer makers and may have introduced the art of brewing to these shores. Throughout the Middle Ages, beer grew in popularity and was safer to drink than water. Local brew houses sprang up in towns and villages, as well as monasteries where monks became very accomplished brewers. But it took until the Industrial Revolution for commercial brewing to become established, as developments in harnessing steam provided a source for heating and sterilization on a large scale. In the mid-19th century, when Morwellham was a thriving copper port, most towns and villages had their own beer-making facilities, and Morwellham was no exception. Records show a maltings was housed in the building now occupying our pottery centre, and it no doubt supplied grain for beer that was brewed and served in the Ship Inn. Here in the UK, we have a thriving market for craft beers, locally produced in artisan breweries the length and breadth of the country. The principal ingredients of beer and the way it's brewed have changed little over time, but just what is it that gives local beers their distinct and characteristic flavours, when almost all share the same 4 key ingredients? A large part of it is down to the local water. Beer is 90% water, so, perhaps unsurprisingly, the mineral content of water not only influences taste, but affects how its alkalinity or hardness reacts with other ingredients. In addition to water, those other key ingredients are malted barley, hops, and yeast. Barley is one of the oldest cultivated cereal crops, and today around a quarter of barley grown in Britain goes into producing alcohol. Before it can be used to make beer, the barley has to be malted to activate enzymes in the grain. The process involves wetting the grain to germinate it, then at a critical stage, kiln drying it to halt germination just when the starch has been converted into sugar and protein. The process of making beer begins by the malted barley being crushed and then soaked in hot water in a mash tun. The sugars in the grain are dissolved in the hot water to create a sweet malty liquid known as wort. The wort is drawn off and transferred to the copper where it's boiled. It's at this stage that hops are added. Hops are the flower of the hop plant and have been used for centuries to add flavour to the beer. There are 2 types. Bittering hops contain alpha acids, a form of resin which, as the name suggests, are used to add characteristic bitterness to the beer. The other is aromatic hops. These contain essential oils that add flavour and aroma. Because the oils in aromatic hops are volatile, they're added later in the boiling process to avoid being evaporated. Boiling the wort sterilizes the mixture and denatures proteins present in the barley that would render the beer cloudy and unpalatable. The mixture then passes to the fermenter where yeast is added, and the process of turning the wort into beer really begins. Yeast is a living organism and in the fermentation process consumes the sugars in the wort, converting these into alcohol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide rests on top of the liquid, preventing oxygen in the air from oxidizing and spoiling the beer. The fermenting process used here at Morwellham to brew our Copper Miner craft beer takes around 5 days at a constant temperature within the fermenter of 20 degrees centigrade. At the end of this time, the yeast will have worked its magic, and the result is the golden liquid we recognize as traditional English ale. The beer is then casked and held for 1 week at 12 degrees centigrade to condition it. All that remains is to filter and bottle it ready for consumption. We hope you'll take the opportunity to sample Copper Miner for yourself in the Ship Inn, or take home a bottle or 2 available from our village shop.